everyone. Hi, Matt, and hello to everyone who's listening. Welcome to our Wellbeing Research Insights with Elite Mind Academy. So, those are our weekly live conversations where we discuss a variety of topics from organizational well-being and development space. And we're often digging into the topics that very often stay behind the closed doors. And today I'm really excited because we have a very special guest. Matt, welcome.
Hello.
And topic that we're discussing today is the role of storytelling in companies' culture and in organizational well-being. So I have invited Matt to have this conversation with me because Matt is a producer and a creative director, and he's been helping companies to shape their narratives for I don't know how many years, the experience, Matt, that you've been doing this. So I think it will be really interesting to explore today what we can unpack out of your work, and also how we can look at the importance of storytelling from even kind of like evolutionary perspective, right? Why is it so important for us, and how can we apply it in our lives and in our organizations, right? So hello to everyone who's listening. Please feel free to say hello, ask me and Matt any questions. And yeah, Matt, do you want to introduce yourself and what you do, and why are you so passionate about storytelling, right? Like, what is it so special about storytelling that shapes everything that you do in your work?
Yeah, thank you, Evelina, for the introduction. So, my name is Matt Castle. I'm a business development consultant. I specialize in interactive video content to help brands position themselves for success. So, what does success look like? A big part of it is culture and how they define, what they stand for as an organization above and beyond selling products and services. So storytelling is a very important role. We all understand subconsciously, the importance of storytelling. We've all been brought up on stories, but what it actually means in the workplace, it's about creating a sense of identity, a sense of meaning in our work, and how that relates to the purpose and the vision that organization is working towards, really. So it can unify people. It can be used to give people, it can also be very powerful in the learning and development process by using stories. Help to retain information and just make the learning more relatable, really.
Yeah, definitely. And why do you think, the storytelling is personally important to you, right? Why you have chosen to go that way specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I've been
Yeah.
producing video content for a number of years now, and I've just seen the power of an emotive narrative, and how that can draw people in, and it can change the way people think and feel about important subjects, whether that's diversity and inclusion, whether it's employee well-being. Cybersecurity has been a big focus for me over the years, creating narratives around that draw people in, and give them a role in that narrative, and they can see how different scenarios play out from different perspectives by making it interactive. So yeah, I've just been affected by the impact that it's created. I've been moved emotionally myself through the narratives that we've created, and I've seen the impact that it's had on other people. So it's just something that I'm totally convinced works, and I've seen the proof of that.
Yeah, and I think you're touching on something very important. It's about that whole employee experience, right? And you mentioned as well, companies' vision and mission, and the importance of that. And I think as let's say when small companies, startups are founded, founders are initially quite good at telling their initial story, right? Why have I created this business? What difference I want this company to make? What is the personal story behind, why we do what we do? And then as the company grows and it becomes, business with thousands of employees, Now it's very difficult to maintain the same kind of closeness to the employee experience, right? And that and the level of connection and buy-in into that vision, mission, and culture, right? So in what way storytelling can be used to make sure that we have that kind of consistent narrative, and what are all of these different ways that we can use that for enhancing employee experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that really has to come from the leaders. You know, it has to
Mhm.
come from the founders of the company. You know, they set the vision and they set the kind of that purpose, and it's their narrative, it's their backstory, their inspiration, it's their why. That why the company was founded in the first place that really needs to be communicated. You know, top down. And once people get a feeling and a sense of alignment to that, then they are able to kind of embrace that sense of purpose. And then if they're aligned to that vision, then they will have their own personal story, and then they can use that, or it can be used as a way to you know bridge that gap, if you like, between the personal uh, connection with that company to how they're actually making a difference in their industry or in the lives of their customers and their um, clients. So
Yeah, and I think what you're touching on here, right, it's like also like customers and clients, right? This is not just about the importance of internal culture, right? This is how do you even attract the right people into that culture, and how can we appeal to what's our story and what's our narrative of the business, and how can we tell it in a way that then attracts the right people who are also going to have that alignment of the same values, of the same impact they want to make in a world, that maybe the same ways of working that they're attracted to, right? And that's that story, that narrative. I think it's crucial in first attracting people to us through that recruitment, then making sure that it's all consistent and kind of sharing that experience and getting the buy-in within the business. But also, I think there is so many other aspects within the culture that can be addressed through storytelling, right? And I remember we had some conversations before about empathy, right?
mm,
And role of empathy. And I think that is very interesting, because when we look at our ability to connect with other humans and people who are maybe not always like us, people who maybe come from different backgrounds, people who have different values, beliefs, belief systems, if we are able to share those narratives, then we can increase that sense of belonging, we can improve inclusion and diversity within the business, but also we can improve our customer service, because people know how to relate to the experience of people that they are serving, right? So talk to me a little bit more about that kind of empathy part, and why that is so important in that culture.
yeah, I mean, I've used virtual reality technology is very powerful for creating immersive experiences that really allow you to walk in the shoes of someone else. So we've brought narratives to life for the likes of EY, and some of the bigger consultancy firms, um, designed to give senior leaders an insight into what it's like to be in the shoes of, say, a young black man going through the recruitment process. Where
Mm.
typically, the senior leadership team will be white, middle-aged or older men. How can they get a feeling of what it's like to be, of a different
Mhm.
background? So there's different ways that these narratives can be brought to life. It could be interactive content, it can be virtual reality, um, but just utilizing these technologies, combining with very engaging uh, backstories of these characters. It can be based on real life,
Mhm.
real people, or it could be fictional characters. It's about understanding, you know the change that you want to bring around in
Yeah.
people. It's about helping them to see things ultimately from a different perspective, and opening up those discussions, and those neuro pathways. We spoke about this before, but it's about,
Yeah.
just embracing different perspectives ultimately.
Absolutely. And I think, we had those discussions before about, the whole neuroscience of storytelling, right? And when you think about how even our memory works, how our brain works, we haven't evolved to learn from, books and screens and, websites and, having all of this kind of information that is being downloaded onto us right now, right? Our brains have evolved to learn through environment and through the experience of interaction, of being and doing, and our memory is very closely related to some of those stories that we can tell ourselves and we can tell others, that we are walking, we are experiencing something, we are doing, and there's a lot of learning in that. And by retelling those stories, that's how learnings have been kind of passed on about, hunting and safe places to go and the dangers of the world and kind of inspiring stories and so on. And when you put that in a context of evolution, of course, there's been millions of years that we've been doing this, and now there is just such a short period of time. Really, when you look at, a couple of hundred years ago, still, most people were still illiterate, right? There is only like, privileged elite people that were able to read and write. So this way of learning through kind of written information is very, very new and is very alien to us. So by bringing the storytelling, by creating those immersive experiences, by allowing people to interact with that experience and have a choice, that just taps into how we have been designed to learn and remember, information as humans. But also, I think, that connection aspect, like you mentioned, and seeing the world maybe from other person's point of view and from their shoes, right? It's so important because we all have biases, and this is ingrained in our psyche, right? We cannot see anything different to the life and the values and experiences that we have been through, and unless we learn to experience it, and we're being introduced to those different alternatives, we can be quite yeah, I mean, even discrimination, exclusion, favoritism, all of those things are being created by sometimes lack of that empathy and lack of understanding of other person's experience. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's so, so important to build that empathy and to do it in a way that, is natural to us as human beings, rather than forcing people to learn, there are 7 principles of behavior here in our
Yeah.
country.
No, that's exactly right. And there are some core elements of storytelling. It's about engaging characters that people find relatable. If we think about our favorite films, it's there's attributes of those characters that we admire, and that's important in any narratives that we're developing. And also a sense of conflict. There needs to be a challenge or a problem that the character needs to resolve within that narrative, um, in order to make it engaging and in order to draw us in. And then, the idea of resolution, there has to be some sort of a climax where at the end of that narrative, where the conflict is resolved, and by making those stories interactive, we can actually put the learner in that environment,
Mm,
in the truest sense, for them to kind of, work towards that resolution
mm,
themselves, and see how things can go wrong, and see the
yeah.
consequences of different decisions that they're able to make,
Yeah.
within that. So it's very
I
powerful.
love that you're mentioning challenge and difficulty and, something that you have to overcome, right? And when you look at kind of the mythical storytelling, right? The narrative that kind of been passed on through generations, there are all of these elements, right? If you look at, the hero's journey, right? There's always this challenge or adversary that we meet, and there is always a conflict to resolve. And then you take the lessons and you bring it home and you change the culture and the space where you're in with this new wisdom that you bring back home to yourself, right? And I think that is so powerful because, again, we live in this world where, everything is at our fingertips, right? We live very comfortable lives. Our bodies have evolved to really to fight for survival, right? To fight predators, to go and find food, there's a lot of struggle. And now we really don't have any of that, right? Like, the chances of us dying are really, minute by some of these kind of like dangerous situations, right? And there is a lot of that is taken away from the society. And sometimes, we look at a lot of even mental health conditions and um, a lot of illnesses that we are developing is because we are not even challenging ourselves to build that inner resilience, right? We don't know how to build our internal muscle to overcome some of those challenges. So people are seeking some of those thrills. And yeah, you have like some of those industries of these like big marathons, and people really go challenge themselves in a different ways. And some of these I don't know how you call them, like all of these kind of different challenges where you go like physically, really kind of endurance um, runs and so on that people do.
Mhm.
But the same can be applied at the psychological narrative, right? We need that challenge. And if we, in the working environment, if everything is the same, if everything is always how it is, we get bored, right? We move on, we leave, we go elsewhere. So I think that challenge is so important. And creating a safe environment where it's okay to do mistakes, and it's not the mistakes that should be frowned upon, but our ability to learn the right lessons out of it, right? And that's, I think that storytelling can be so crucial because we all learn something different from the same experiences, so we can share that and build on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Is there any questions from any of the audience so far?
Yeah, let's say hello to everyone who's listening. Hi, Jackie. Hi, Zena. Right. So, yeah, Jackie's commenting that empathy is so important. Zena saying Carl Rogers described empathy as walking in someone else's shoes. And as a counselor, this is the core of my work. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm building on understanding and empathy. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think definitely it's so important to put ourselves in the shoes of other person in so many different contexts, right? In organizations, but also, like Zena reflected in more of that therapeutic work. Any questions? How do you feel, for those of you who are listening? How exactly do you use your story, your narrative in your organization? So whether you are, a business owner, whether you're running your own therapeutic practice, what is your story and what is your narrative that you use to connect with others? And if you are working in organizations, again, what's the story of your business? What is the narrative that helps to build um, that helps to build the whole vision and mission and the bigger purpose of why that company exists? So I'd love to hear some comments about that. And yeah, talking about that, Matt,
Yeah.
what's your purpose? What's the story of your company?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's just creating narratives that people find inspiring and just moving the needle, It's like, the world is just moving at such a fast pace now with technology, and we'll always come back to, you know, the need to feel connected and the need for more empathy. These are kind of universal principles that sometimes we lose sight of. It's the human connection
Yeah.
that really makes a difference. Um,
And if I can say what I really like about your work and what you're doing is, and this is something that you are touching on this kind of role of technology, right? We live in this kind of very disconnected world, right? And technology can either help us to do that or it can hinder us, right? So many people are just engaged with their technology and, binging on social media, and they kind of get that false sense of social interaction, right? And there's a lot of social skills that they're being lost because of this, especially if you look at kind of younger children, teenagers as well, where their whole identities are shaped through those social interactions. If we don't create those environments, we are losing this big part of what it means to be human, right? We are social beings, we are wired to connect. And what I really like about what you are doing, that you are actually looking at, no, technology is not bad. Technology is not something that will, disconnect you and will make you, less relevant and so on. You are looking at how can you actually apply technology for the advantage of building those connections in the right way and actually building that empathy, which is, I think, it's quite a unique thing that you are doing in a way, right? Because yeah, in most ways technology is used to replace humans, right? You are looking at how can you utilize these immersive experiences and storytelling in a way that technology can, enhance the human experience and the social connection.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like anything in life. There needs to be a balance. You know, but it's important in the workplace. Particularly companies that do embrace a culture of
Mhm.
storytelling. It's interesting with the work that you do. You go in and you help to define the true needs of
Mhm.
those employees through your kind of diagnostic approach. And if you identify that a company it does have that sense of being purpose driven, then you can see how storytelling can play a role in that. But if it's on the other side in these companies that perhaps don't have engaged staff, then storytelling plays a different role. It's about
Yeah.
knowing what that company stands for. That kind of that comes at the top of that, and if that's not clear, then that needs to be brought to life and brought to the forefront of the communication kind of piece.
Yeah, sorry if I seem distracted. I've just realized that my laptop wasn't plugged in, so I didn't want it to just like die. So I just plugged it in. Yeah, I think, it's what is very important, like I mentioned, is the different aspects of that storytelling internally. What it made me think, there was this experiment done as part of the neuroscience research that looked at how people relate to other people's experience based on their background. And from there, the way the experiment was that, there was a video of different people, and then there was a hand on the person in a video was holding hand on a table. And then there would be a knife being stabbed into that person's hand. And what they were really testing, they were testing actually to what extent you are experiencing that pain as you are watching it. And, even as I say that, I can kind of see you cringe, right? It's like, because you imagine that, and obviously it's just painful, right? To even think of it. So what they did, they were wearing EEG caps, and they were checking to what extent you are experiencing the pain of this other person. And what they realized that if the skin color of that person who you are observing on a screen is the same as yours, you will relate to it much more. You will feel that pain much more strongly. While the bigger the difference between, this the skin color and the cultural background of people that, you are not recognizing yourself in them in a way, and them in you, then it becomes much more difficult to feel the same experience of pain, right? And I think there is this huge lesson that, we can really see why maybe then sometimes some of those biases and discrimination um, occur in our working environments, because again, we are wired to feel and to connect with people who are a little bit more like us, right? And you can take this in different ways. You think like, oh, okay, so that means that we are born to be bullies, and we are born to be belonging only to the people in our societies with people who are like us. But actually, the second stage of experiment shows completely how to change those boundaries. And what they did then, they actually asked people what is their favorite football team was, and they then got to wear the caps and uniforms of their favorite team. And then people who were participating in that experiment, they also were given either the uniforms of the same clubs that you are fans of, or different ones. And now straight away, just by doing that, the skin color did not matter.
Oh,
Now you are relating to the person who's actually who is also a fan of the same football team, right? And I think, to me, this example is so beautiful in terms of those narratives and those stories that we are telling ourselves. Because yes, of course we have those evolutionary biases. Yes, of course we have all of the history of our brain evolution that will affect how we relate to the world. But what that also means, that if we know how to utilize that for these different storytelling examples, right? We can build inclusion. We can build that sense of belonging. We can really recreate the narrative of what does it mean to be us as a team? What
mhm.
does it mean to be them, right? Who is included in this tribe and who is excluded, right? And the narrative we tell as leaders, and what do we choose to be part of, can really define the whole inclusion and diversity, and all of those dynamics that can prevent harassment and discrimination and all of those other cases that are so rife in those businesses.
Yeah, it can really help to expose that, where things are going wrong, and look at what needs to be addressed and corrected, and
Mm.
also, amplify, what's going right, and where things are, where is the innovation, where is the change being made in a particular industry, where in the context of what that particular company stands
Yeah.
for, and the place that they where they sit in on that spectrum, of change. So, and being seen as a real driver for as a, as a force for good, really, through their own narrative. So yeah, it's very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some comments as well from people who are watching. There's comments from Veselin saying, really appreciate what you are sharing here. We are at VJ Play. We're also using storytelling, behavioral science, and gamification to make leadership development more useful. A lot of the leadership training these days is just PowerPoint presentations or very theoretical, but through engaging leaders in interactive activities, learning is much more fun and effective. Absolutely. I think, we mentioned the training and development already, but the empathy aspect, the storytelling aspect is so important in training and development, and the whole kind of leadership narrative as well, role modeling those right behaviors. Um, yeah, I mean, it's we like we mentioned at the beginning, right? We are wired to learn through the experience and not through this overwhelm of information of PowerPoints and theory and models.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's really about bringing people together, and just, yeah,
Hmm.
original narratives that you know engage audiences. So it's powerful.
Absolutely. And I think also, there's this importance of, as more people are working remotely. And again, there's comments here saying now leadership is much more about emotional intelligence, and given globalization, working from different time zones, with children and pets at home, people feeling lonely sometimes, and all the challenges that come with working remotely. So, absolutely. I think in that as well, how, if you are working remotely, how can we use that technology and the story narrative that yeah, I might be sitting here alone in this office, right, in my own little office in my home, but actually I belong, right? I'm part of something bigger, something
Hmm.
greater. I'm making an impact. I'm part of that wider, bigger team who are working with me. And that has huge impact on our sense of well-being and mental health, right? So I think, when we talk about storytelling, it's not just about, you know getting the message land on people in a way to get them remember something. It's really about that whole sense of well-being and the culture that we build, that people want to be part of, that people want to belong. So yeah, so what is, for everyone who's listening as well, what are some of those stories that your organization is telling to their audiences, to their employees, to their potential buyers, to their potential new recruits who are looking for work, right? How can we use that storytelling and make sure that we find that alignment with people's values? So it's so important. Any other examples, Matt, that you have from some of your work? I know you talked as well about, like customer service. You talked about some, where else can this storytelling be applied in practical ways? Maybe there are specific things that you have used in your work, and yeah, where else storytelling can be applied, right? Give us some more like practical examples as well.
Yeah, I think in the recruitment process, it can be very powerful. You can test people and how they'll react in different situations, and use that as a pre-qualifier for if they'll be suitable to apply for a particular position. Um, a lot of the results within the interactive experiences can be tracked through learning management systems, so HR teams can see and identify where there's gaps in learning in individuals. So yeah, it's very powerful to to have those analytical tools, um, to assess people's progress, really. Just trying to think of other examples. Yeah, I mean, leadership training, very powerful. If we want to really develop future leaders, they can see, how, test how they would respond in different scenarios, and then give them, examples of how it should be done if they're, getting it wrong, so to speak. But yeah, like A and B, you pick option A, we call it branching. So you've got different directions that the story can evolve in, but then you can play the scenario back again from the beginning to see how it would play from a different perspective. So yeah, we've done training examples for the police. So we've been using immersive environments that place you in a crime scene investigation, as a new recruit to the police, and then seeing how, looking at the different protocols and processes that need to be followed in a crime scene. And then, the implications of that if it goes wrong. So yeah, learning and
Yeah.
training. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think, really when we look at it, like storytelling should be applied or could be applied at every stage of the organization to enhance the employee experience journey, right?
Hmm.
So you look at from hiring to firing, right? So from hiring, attracting the right people, then once they are on board, how can you engage them in the story of your business so they can get a buy-in into the company, so they really care, they are really engaged, they really want to make a difference, they find a way to align their personal vision, mission, and values that they have to those of the organization, right? And then as you progress, there's this capacity building, skills building, leadership development. It's all about human interactions, right? And it's all about understanding how can we improve, as human beings in our communication. How can we manage performance conversations? How can we challenge and give feedback? How can we support people when maybe they're struggling, right? How do you have a conversation, let's say, with someone who just told you that they don't want to live, right? And obviously, you don't have to wait for these real scenarios to happen to test how capable you are in having
Mhm.
those conversations, we can really simulate them through this interactive storytelling, and that can be applied for this training and development in a very, very effective way. And then when it goes too far, like you said, with examples of the police, when there are some cases of harassment and bullying, and there are some crisis situations to address,
Mm.
again, you can use that to gather those insights and to make choices, and to say, like, if I make this decision, what is the impact of my action on other people and on other individuals on receiving end? And we can really build those storytellings to um, I would say, really, to build the emotional intelligence of your workforce, right? And the sense of belonging and inclusion, like we talked about, the narrative really being building that sense of empathy and connection between us, this kind of unity. It immense. It has a huge value for the organization in retention, in inclusion and productivity. And what can happen if people really care and they do their job well and they know how to resolve those challenges and difficulties in the right way, right?
Yeah, I mean, another way of saying it is resilience. You've got
Mm,
organizational resilience. How does the organization respond to a crisis? That's going to be determined by how well the employees have been trained, as well as, the systems in place, of course, but how you actually embed those systems across the organization. It comes down to
mm,
to what extent individuals embody those principles of resilience. So and again, on an individual level, how you touch on mental health, it's very important to be fully aware of the nuances in how
mm.
to respond to people, perhaps that you're line managing, or colleagues that are in a difficult spot. um, so yeah, I've done a lot of interactive experiences related to resilience, and it's a very important subject for organisations to really make sure that these lessons are embedded, and the employees retain that information, and they can go back to certain learning modules that are interactive, that involve stories, and they can reference them and again, at their own pace.
Absolutely, and that can add just so much value. It's just yeah, I'm surprised that many companies are still not utilizing this, and that a lot of leadership training is still delivered with PowerPoint and a manual that you have to spend ages reading and so on, instead of really recreating those situations where we can really see the impact of our actions and decision making on other people and on organizations. So yeah, so Matt, for some companies who may be interested to learn more, who would like to get in touch with you, what's the best ways to reach out to you? Well, obviously they can see your LinkedIn
Yeah.
contacts.
Yeah, that would be the best way to connect on LinkedIn, really. But that's really where I start. It's about understanding the challenges that a company's facing, and then really coming up with strategies and kind of narrative ideas that could help to engage, whatever the target audience is, whether it's internal or external. Um, and I'm just happy to share a few ideas about what's possible, and come up with some engaging.
Absolutely, and I
Yes.
can definitely say with hand on my heart that Matt is the most supportive and helpful person, and he's very keen to explore and to just have a chat and see what stories can be told within your organization to shape your employee experience, your culture, but also this external perception of the brand of credibility of the business, and kind of from marketing perspectives, right? So if you are thinking and exploring different applications of storytelling that could enhance your business, I definitely recommend to get in touch with Matt and have a chat with him. So yeah, so thank you very much, Matt. Thank you everyone who's listening. Thank you those who engaged with their questions and their comments. Thank you very much. And we will see you next week, same time, same place. Have a great
Thank
week.
you.
Bye bye.
Great to chat. Take care.
Bye.